sounds really scary, but I'm kind of excited. Hey y'all, I'm Rylan. Welcome to my channel. I don't do this very often anymore. I don't think I've done this at all this year actually, but I wanted to take a second and talk about 5 books that I feel as though I need to read this fall. I have a mix here of new releases, books that have been on my shelf for a minute, and also a NetGalley arc that I don't believe has released yet. And I'm very excited to put these 5 books out into the universe and hopefully cement the fact that I'll be reading them in this upcoming fall season, which I am super excited about. I have 3 thrillers, 1 fantasy romance, and a contemporary kind of spooky Halloween romance, and I'm very excited about all of these. We're gonna go ahead and jump right in. I do like to read my books without knowing too much about them before diving into them, but I am going to do a little bit of research and hopefully give y'all a little bit of information about these books. That way you can decide for yourself if you're interested in checking these books out. But to me, all of them seem like they're going to be really amazing and I'm excited to check them out. I have already read from 2 of these authors in the past and I'm excited to read their newer books, and then the other 3 authors here are new to me, although I have heard of most of them. So let's go ahead and dive right into these 5 books, starting off with the thrillers. First up, I have Good Bad Girl by Alice Feeney. I have read almost all of her books, and that's why this book is on this list for this upcoming season, because Good Bad Girl is one of the only ones that I have not read from her, and this book has been sitting on my shelf for a hot minute, probably since its release, which I think was last year, but I might be wrong. This, however, is a thriller. Alice Feeney, in my opinion, writes very addictive thrillers. I have read most of her books, of course, like I've already said, and have given most of them 4 stars or higher. I've given one of her books for sure 5 stars, and I think I've given 2 other ones 4 or 4.5 stars. So really enjoy her writing, really enjoy her thrillers. I think she is really great at making exciting plots and really crazy plot twists that I don't see coming, but still very much fit the story, and I just think she writes very addictive books. Good Bad Girl is a thriller about bad things happening to good people and good people having to do bad things. So I'm just gonna go ahead and kind of like skim this synopsis and give you all the highlights of it. But this says, 20 years after a baby is stolen from a stroller, a woman is killed. The 2 crimes are somehow linked and spark a mystery with 3 suspects, 2 murderers, and 1 victim. And it seems like now we're in the present time with a woman named Edith who is 80 years young, and she's planning to escape from this nursing home that her estranged daughter put her in. And she has 1 friend, and it might be a nurse at this nursing home, but it turns out that Patience, who is her only friend, lies about everything, or is lying about almost everything in her life. And we've got a stranger involved, and her estranged daughter comes back into Edith's life, and it seems like nobody trusts anybody, and there are a lot of secrets and not great things going on in this one. I'm very curious about this one now that I've kind of skimmed the synopsis, because I had no idea that that's what this book was about, and I'm very curious to see how the past and the present end up linking together, if they do at all, and how a baby being stolen from a stroller connects with the death of a woman from 20 years ago. Super fascinated by this one. Again, I really like Alice Feeney's books for the most part. I think she's super addictive. I've already used that word. And she also writes very short chapters normally, which I can appreciate as somebody whose attention is not great. I love a book with short chapters, and this one, from what I've seen, does have that, which I am very excited about. The second book that I have is a very new release by Paul Tremblay, and that is Horror Movie. I do actually know about this book a little bit because the person who runs the book club that I'm a part of talked about it in our last meeting and sort of explained the synopsis, because this is our October pick for that book club. Paul Tremblay has written a lot of thriller / horror books. I have not read any of them, but I have heard of the author before and do have books from him on my TBR. But this is a thriller horror book about a group of college students who in the past tried to make a short film, I believe, for one of their classes, and things about the production kept going wrong, so the movie was never finished. And every person who was a part of this film ended up dying except for 1 character. And it sounds like years and years later, the man who played one of the characters in this movie and is the only surviving cast member from that time comes back because they tried to remake this film in the present. And then the man who played the part in the movie all those years ago remembers all too well the secrets buried within the original screenplay, the bizarre events of the filming, and the dangerous crossed lines on set that resulted in tragedy. As memories flood back in, the boundaries between reality and film, past and present, start to blur. I've heard this one is kind of a mix of thriller and horror, which honestly I like. I've heard really, really great things about Paul Tremblay, and when the book club host was talking about this book on Sunday, a couple of days ago when I went to book club, I immediately got super excited about this one because I think it sounds so good. It sounds right up my alley. I love a good horror movie-esque book, especially one that involves like a movie that was in production but never was completed because of bad things that happened on the set. I've seen a couple of movies recently that kind of had that role, or that kind of had that plot line in them, so I'm very excited about this one, and I cannot wait to get to it in a couple of weeks before my book club meets in October. The final thriller that I have on this list for my fall TBR is Incidents Around the House by Josh Malerman. I have also read several of this author's works and have really enjoyed them overall. This book immediately fascinated me when I heard about it. One, because of the author, and I really like this author. Two, the cover, very creepy. We got the bunny on it with the eerie lighting surrounding it. And third, because I heard that this, is that fourth? No, that's I think that's third. Third, this book is written from the perspective of a child, I believe. But the inside flap of this book says that this is a chilling horror novel about a haunting told from the perspective of a young girl whose troubled family is targeted by an entity that she calls Other Mommy. That sounds scary. I can definitely see this book being something very similar to a type of movie that Blumhouse would publish or produce, I guess is the word for movies. And I like a lot of Blumhouse's movies personally. Not all of them have been winners for me, especially with ones that I've seen this year, but I have like kind of watched movies similar to this, and I'm very excited to read it from like a book perspective, because I feel like watching movies, of course, and reading books are very different things, and sometimes what's made a movie is harder to explain in a book, but also vice versa. So I'll be curious to see how this kind of works in this book. But our protagonist is Bella. She's 8 years old, and she has her mom, dad, and grandmother who live with her, and also her other mommy, a malevolent entity who asks her every day, "Can I go inside your heart?" When horrifying incidents around the house signal that Other Mommy is growing tired of asking Bella the question over and over, Bella understands that unless she says yes, her family will soon pay. That sounds really, 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 really scary, but I'm kind of excited about it. I think this will be a really good book to read like right around Halloween. Also, probably not a book that I can read at night because I think I will have nightmares, but this sounds really, really good, and I'm excited to get to it. The fourth book that I have on this fall TBR is The Wren in the Holly Library by K.A. Lind. I have not read from the author before, but have seen this book and other books by the author around on social media in the past. And when I first got an ARC of this book, thank you so much to the publisher, even though it's already been released and I am very behind, but it's fine. I have wanted to pick this one up, but my mood for fantasy is very sparse and rare, I feel like, most of the time nowadays, and so I haven't actually gotten around to this one yet, but I do think that fall would be the perfect time to get to it. All I really know at this exact moment about this book is the fact that it's an enemies to lovers romantasy, and I love a good enemies to lovers. We all know that's my favorite trope, and I will read anything that has that trope in it as like a main element. But according to the back of the book, thank you very much, 13 years ago, monsters emerged from the shadows and plunged this world into a war of near total destruction. The New York City she knew so well collapsed practically overnight. In the wake of that carnage, the monster treaty was created, a truce of sorts. But tonight, Kierce, who is our main character, she's a thief, will break that treaty. She'll enter the Holly Library, not knowing it's the home of a monster. And I guess the monster is the male enemy love interest, and she gets locked into a dangerous bargain with him and will sacrifice her freedom, and together they'll end up having to work together to put their own futures at risk. But he's been playing a game across centuries, and once she joins in, there will be no escape. So it sounds like this is a fantasy that's set in the real world, at least at the beginning, before not maybe being in the real world, because this says New York City. So I don't know what to expect with that aspect of this book. I'm not a huge fan of world building, largely because I get so confused, but maybe this will kind of be a more modern like world, kind of like Crescent City or House of Earth and Blood, I guess, by Sarah J Maas. I really fell in love with that world because I could understand it because it was so modern and very much felt like Earth, just with magical beings as a part of it, in my opinion. But I'm not sure what to expect with this, so I don't know. But I love a good romance, I love good enemies to lovers. Hopefully the fantasy aspect will not throw me off too much, but I was drawn to this book when I first opened it up. I just haven't had a chance to read it yet, and I think that fall will be the perfect time to cozy up with it and jump in. The final book that I have on this TBR is an ARC that I have from NetGalley. It is a romance called If I Stopped Haunting You by Colby Wilkins. Have not read anything by this author before either. I don't know if it's their debut. I don't think it is. But I was offered a widget of this one on NetGalley, I believe, and obviously I accepted it because look at this cover. Stunning. A, I love a good romance. B, I love a good mystery, and I felt as though something about hauntings would be a very good mix of both. We just also have this paranormal element probably added into it as well, which is totally fine. I'll be curious to see how this one ends up being for me though. It currently has a 3.11 rating on Goodreads, so a little bit nervous about that, but I'm excited about it personally and do plan to read this one for a vlog in the next couple of weeks, so that'll be very fun. But this, I have the synopsis on my Goodreads. Whew, that's bright. It's also enemies to lovers, which we love to see always, with a spooky twist. So it's an enemies to lovers romance with a spooky twist where two feuding writers end up on a writer's retreat together at a haunted castle in Scotland. It kind of gives beach read vibes from that, but not, because paranormal or haunting castle. We got like the enemies to lovers things, feuding writers, that's exciting. And it seems like as this retreat begins, the two main characters are stunned to find themselves trapped in a real life ghost story in this castle. But even more terrifying to them is the fact that they are stuck together. And they have an extremely hot, it says it right there in parentheses, almost kiss that has left them rethinking their feelings, and maybe they shouldn't have been enemies at all. I don't know about y'all, but that book sounds so much fun, and I'm excited to get to it in this fall season. Fall is my favorite time of year. I don't normally make TBRs, but I did want to put a couple books on a TBR, I guess, that gives me several months to complete, and a kind of a variety of genres and tropes and things like that. As somebody who is very much a mood reader, of course, I also do not make monthly TBRs anymore. Might try doing it again next year, kind of. Maybe, we'll see, but I thought that a good little seasonal TBR might be a fun way to check some books off my list as somebody who does like to plan, but also as somebody who is a mood reader. So we'll see. But I'm very excited about all of these books, even more so now that I've talked about them with y'all. I'll have content warnings for all these books in the description down below as per usual. If you have read any of these books, feel free to let me know your thoughts on them, because obviously have not read them yet, but I'm very excited about all of them, especially now that I've talked about them out loud, because I know kind of what they're about and they all sound so good. So I cannot wait. That is what I have for today's video. If you have any books on your fall TBR, feel free to comment down below and let me know what they are. I love adding more books to my TBR, or letting you know my thoughts on the books that you have if I've already read them. But that's all that I have for today's video. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you all in the next one.